this computer. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Hosted Bar. I'm Erin, and I'm super excited to be here with Dawn and Amanda Strickland. So I will start with you, Dawn. How are you doing today, and what fabulous things are you drinking for today?
Yeah, I'm doing great today. The sun is shining, like Amanda said when we got on the phone, which is exciting for Wisconsin. And I'm drinking a Tito's with a blackberry lemon seltzer water and a lemon wedge to make it very fancy today.
Excellent. Uh,
Perfect.
Now, Amanda, uh, so what are you drinking, and who are you? And then we'll get into why we're super excited to have you here. But
I can talk about what I'm drinking first.
you can do it. I mean, it is called Hosted Bar.
That's right. All right. Well, I have this beautiful wine glass of kombucha, actually. So I actually, it's funny that we're doing a drinking show because I just stopped drinking. I just hit my 6-month mark. What?
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm not sure I had gone 6 days since I was pregnant. So yeah, I just decided to try life a little differently. And here I am drinking kombucha. But I found these like tricks. Like if I put it in a wine glass, then I feel kind of like fancy and I'm having this little treat. So here I am.
Yeah,
Cheers.
so I there's lots of different things, people who are sober curious, or all these different things, and dry January. But there's a lot of people that decided that, you know what, drinking's just not for me, either for health reasons or money reasons or just because reasons, right? And I think it's great. And we've had lots of different people drink lots of crazy stuff and other things, from bottled water to, I think Dan had a Culver's chocolate malt, which was probably the thing I was most jealous of.
Yeah.
It looked
Yeah,
really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Mine started with Sober October, actually. I don't know, I was kind of feeling run down, and I was a really regular drinker. I drank almost every day, had a glass of wine or two with dinner and making dinner. And, I've got 3 kids, and like that just instantly in my head tells me I deserve wine. Right. So, and I just started feeling not great. I just was noticing my energy level was down, and I'm like, I'm just going to take a break. So I started with Sober October, and then I'm like, right at the end of the month, I'm like, I feel way better. I mean, just everything. I was sleeping better. I've had sleep issues since my first child was born. So I just, I decided I just needed to try it out for a little longer. And then I just kept going. And I'm like, you know what, maybe I've spent a lot of my life drinking, right? Like maybe it was just time to try it differently. And now I don't know. I mean, I might go back and drink. I'm not like against it. And I don't think I was an addict necessarily, but maybe in some ways, like addicted to the routine or something. So anyways, it's just, I've been really happy with this decision. It's changed a lot, actually. In fact, someone asked me like, well, what did you change in your life to like make this transition? And I was like, actually, I think I changed everything. Like I just started to really approach things differently, and because alcohol was a lot of times at the center. So I'm certainly not against it. I just told my friend this weekend, I love going to bars still. I love the social atmosphere.
Camaraderie, yeah.
Yeah. So I still go. I just like, I have a really cheap bar tab at the end of the night. It's really awesome.
It's back to being in college when everybody bought drinks for you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So I'll just go quickly say my drink is, I really want to get into a lot of things, but because I'm kind of proud of mine. It is a Bunny Mary. So it is aquavit, carrot juice, some lime or lemon juice, keeper, a bit of hot sauce, a bit of agave, but it's a Bunny Mary. So
I love it.
Awesome.
I have a Pinterest problem. And so I saw that. I'm like, well, now I have to go and buy carrot juice and make a Bunny Mary.
Pinterest problem. That is amazing. Yes.
But to go back to like, I changed everything. First of all, Amanda, you are you're a marketing agency. You started one, and why this all ties in is you'd kind of have changed everything in your life more than a few times, and not spread out over like 30 years. And so can you tell us a little bit about what your business did and kind of how you got there? Because it wasn't like you just graduated college and be like, that's my degree and I'm going to go work at a corporation. You've kind of, like I said, you've changed a lot of things.
True. Yes. I spent a little over 20 years working in advertising agencies. By trade, I'm a graphic designer. I became an art director, a creative director. I loved my job. Even as stressful as it can be in an ad agency, which, I mean, there's beer on tap, like how can it be that bad? But still, we work a lot of long hours and stuff. But after 20 years, I just had this really strange realization one day. I mean, it really was like literally a moment where I thought, what if I did this on my own? One of the things that I really love, even though I'm a creative director, which most of the time, most creative people really want to stay in that, just like lean into the creative. And not that I'm incredibly passionate about creative and design. And I mean, that's like where my heart is, but I've always had this interest in business at the same time, which is an ad agency is very much split like that. Like there's the creative side and then there's the account management side. And I was always the one like sneaking my head over in the account team, like, hey guys, what are you thinking about this strategy for this blow? And in fact, had an account director one time try to recruit me to the account management side. And so there was kind of always this thing in my head that I wasn't quite where I was, like utilizing all of my skill sets or even just all of my interests. I'm not even sure that I had the skills, but I've always been so interested in business. And anyways, I just, the agency I'd been at for 10 years was going through some layoffs, and I was part of the leadership team in the agency, trying to decide who we're letting go. And it was a stressful time. And I just said, what if this was like my chance to step out and try something new? And I had just moved to Madison. So it felt like, I don't know, like everything was in upheaval, as you said at one point, that I just was ready for something different. And I reached out to one of my really close mentors that I've had. She's about 10 years older than me, and just an amazing woman in marketing. And I reached out to her and I said, what do you think about me going out on my own? And she was like, absolutely. And it was so weird. Like that one response that I got was enough to just send me down that path. Because I knew I could do the creative side. I've been doing that 20 years. I had, I don't know, full confidence in that, but could I run a business? Could I really speak the business language? Like I know it needs to be spoken and how I've seen it done. I didn't know. And she was like, Amanda, you've got this. She's like, you've got those skills and you have a lot to learn, but you'll get there. And so I just jumped. I mean, I literally that day called my boss and said, I think I'm ready to leave. And I want my name on that. I'm out of this company list, which is really hard. I mean, they were like my family. So it was quite a jump, but.
Now you mentioned that you had just moved to Madison.
Yes.
And then you started the company, and it wasn't like you moved from Madison to Madison from Milwaukee.
No.
Right.
No, it was
Alaska.
Yes, across the continent. And I was working for them remotely. This is before remote work was cool. So I was trying to figure that out, which was a little bit crazy. But yes, I spent 10 years in Alaska. My husband and I moved up there for fun. We were going to live there for a year or two. We're huge skiers and backpackers and outdoors people. And so we just thought it would be like a fun thing to do. And we promised our family we'd be back in 2 years. And then, cause we were both from the Midwest. And so anyways, then we got married and we had 3 kids and we stayed for 10 years and then finally, moved back to the Midwest. And I was working for that company remotely when we got here. So yeah, it was quite a shift. I moved to Madison sight unseen. In fact, I'd only been to Wisconsin one time when I was like 14. So like I had no idea what I was getting into. And then actually, to be totally transparent here, we got back and our marriage was crumbling and we split up. So not only was I living in a brand new place, I also have twins that were 2 years old at the time. My marriage fell apart. I was living on my own. And I'm like, well, my life is pretty much already upside down. Like, why not just stay in the, it's kind of like everything was new and hard anyway. So what's a little bit more new and hard? Or so, I don't know. I'm psychotic. That sounds terrible, but that's like kind of how it happened.
Well,
So-
too, it was during a pandemic too.
Well, actually, that all happened. I started the company 6 months before the pandemic.
6 months. Okay.
So, right, 6 months. So you were totally on your feet
Yeah.
and knew
Yeah.
exactly what was going on by the time the world changed.
Sure, smooth sailing at that point. No, no,
So
no, definitely.
you came to Madison, started a business where you had some connections, but you really didn't have like the huge network that maybe some did. So, like I said, upheaval seems like a good description of this.
Yeah.
Now that you're a couple years past and you have this successful business, do you think a lot of where you are today is because of all of that upheaval or in spite of?
I think it's maybe some of both, actually. I do think beginning it was probably because I, at that point, you kind of, my life felt very safe and on this like kind of normal, I don't know, quote unquote, normal trajectory of things. Like my career had just ticked up, my relationship, my marriage went up, kids went up. I mean, just all the things that were kind of like normal. And when it flipped upside down, first of all, it made me see that I could be upside down and like find my way. Right. So there was some confidence that came out of that, of like, I can manage really hard things in my life. And so because I think that helped me jump at that point, I was building confidence of my own abilities to just get through things. Right. But then I also think there were 20 years there of not only experience, but also I found like one of the things that's been the most helpful in having this company is how many connections I have. So I lived in Kansas City, Missouri, and Lawrence, Kansas for a while, then Anchorage, and then, here. And it's like, I've made these connections throughout that I always feel like I'm on that. What's the game show where they like phone a friend, like, I feel like that's me all the time. Like when I don't have an answer, I've got like a Rolodex here of people that I know do know the answer. So, at this point, like, I don't know how people do this when they come right out of college. I don't know, because I don't have that Rolodex of here's all the trusted advisors in my life. So I do think that was despite the upheaval, the weird thing is I never saw myself doing this. Like I love the team feeling. Like in fact, when I was majoring in graphic design, I remember people saying like, oh, do you want to be a freelancer and you can stay home? And I'm like, no, I want to work with people. I want to be like I played team sports. I want to be in the team. But what's cool is like, now I can make my own team, right? Like I don't have to be told who's on my team. Now I get to make the call. And so while I was working on my own for a while, it quickly became a team. And so I don't feel super siloed. So that's good. But anyway, so yes, both in spite of and because of.
Well, I would say I don't feel that it's upside down though, Amanda. When you say that, I'm like, it was just a bump in the road, of things. And I think that's the part too of journey that who would have planned that, to happen when you moved back. And like, look at all of the gumption and the strength and confidence that you had to do it. Not everybody has that. And that's where I think so cool when I met you is just, you still dove right in. And you realize too, like, I got connections. I know there's resources out there that will support me. And that's where I think's really motivating and inspiring to hear your story too, of just the experience and the knowledge and the resources that you have.
But
Yeah.
Dawn, as you're starting your business, maybe with a fairly extensive Rolodex.
Right.
I've been I know, and I don't really use it. I've been quiet. I've been hiding a little bit, to be honest, to kind of navigate on my own a little bit too. I almost kind of want to have those falls on your face and learn from it, but I don't want to fall too hard,
I think
I
that's
don't know.
important, right? To learn from people's lessons, but don't only follow their footsteps. You have to figure out your own path. And I think
Yeah.
that's one thing that, Amanda, you've been saying is you know what that you enjoyed being there. It wasn't that you left because it was awful, but you just wanted your own path.
Yeah, absolutely.
The one lesson I learned today is that while the celery looks really cute, it gets up your nose when you try to drink your drink.
Yeah.
Well, and it's crunchy too, because I saw you mute when you took a bite. I was like, oh yeah, it's pretty crunchy.
Yeah, there's
I
a
see.
little extra sound effect probably wasn't needed. So you have and had a lot going on, and you don't have a huge team around you all the time. So how do you stay focused when like everything is trying to unfocus you, right? Like twins, I think, are pretty much just called distractions with legs.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, it's like a skill, right? Like it's something I think that you have to learn and work on in a right, like often. You know, that's the hardest part, right? Just staying focused on the goals, because now all of a sudden when you're working for yourself, no one is holding you accountable anymore. I mean, it's such a weird feeling, and which it's great in some ways, because then when it's sunny, I just like go for a walk or whatever. No one can tell me no, but no one's saying like, hey, how did those goals come along? How are you doing on this? And where's the traction on this? And so it has been hard. And I think it's like little things that help me stay focused. Like, and I think everyone is different, but for me, it's really important for me to change locations during the day. Like I have an office that I go to, like a co-working space. I found that incredibly helpful to get away from the house, because like even right this moment, I can hear the laundry that's talking to me. So like, I got to get away from it. I move, I go to coffee shops, I work, I actually even just move around the house and work in different places. I have like these things that I mean, you can probably imagine being a creative director. I hate dealing with like the billing and the finances and whatnot. So I like go to my favorite coffee shop and I sit and I order like an awesome drink, and I'm like, okay, gotta, get through this. So that's one of my like tricks that I do. But I also have found a couple of accountability partners over the last couple of years, and I've started actually leaning into that even more recently. I reached out to a woman I used to work for in Lawrence, Kansas. She owned an ad agency there for like 30 years. And interestingly enough, she also was a creative that moved into account management, which is kind of rare. And really rare that she's a woman that owned the company. So I reached out to her a few months ago and just said, I need some guidance, and I'm looking for a coach. And I was really excited. I was going to pay her. I was like, I looked up some, fees, and because now she's retired, and she's like, oh my gosh, you don't have to pay me. This is awesome. She's like, I would love to do this. So we meet now regularly, and she checks in on things that I've said I'm going to work on, and has given me the greatest advice. And it's so easy for her, right? She ran an agency for so long, like a really successful agency. So that's really helped me stay focused too, because now someone is holding me accountable, and I appointed them. So it like and she's doing it for free. So I'm like, man, I don't want to let this lady down, so it's been helpful.
A couple of things that I heard. There's one, accountability, and we can come back to that because I've been hounding on with my people, and Dawn and I, we've been talking a lot about it too. But also I wanted to just acknowledge the mentorship that you're talking about, and how important it is to have a mentor, and often a mentor outside of your workplace.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Absolutely. It's been kind of a game changer, actually, talking to her on a regular basis. So yes, I would, but it's an awkward thing to do, right? To call someone and say, will you be my mentor? It sounds like, I don't know. I never understood like how those things really happen. And I was like, well, I mean, screw it. I'm just going to make it happen. I don't know. Like, I'm going to call and see what she says, you
The
know?
worst thing that happens is she says no, right?
Right. Right.
Well, I say, I feel like for some reason with that word mentor, you think of really young professional. I think
Mhm.
that's where it's like the society has created that it's not like any age could use a mentor. And I think that's the thing too, where I love how you're finding a mentor that's been through it and has done it. And that's where I think too, not only is it good to have a mentor that's experienced those similar things, but it's okay to have more mentors too. I think, you've kind of mentioned a couple times because they're all going to bring different perspectives. And,
Yes.
each one's been through different things, even though they may have not had that same role or an agency, they could bring a different perspective for you to think outside the box. But
Mhm.
also to even circle back to earlier when you said how you called, and is this the same person that you called?
No,
No,
that's different actually. Yeah.
different one. Okay. But I love too though, because I feel like I'm very similar to you too, where it's like you almost need that one person that's almost like on the bus with you that agrees that you're on the right track.
Yeah.
And that's all you need. You don't
Yeah.
need everybody else on the bus. You just need one person at least to have that behind you.
I would say too, like, I think one place this really applies is motherhood. Like, I think if you can find a woman who's like got 10 years on you, or 5 or 10 or something, that's like been through these like stages of kids, to assure you that like you're going to make it and that everyone deals with these things and it's totally normal. It's like, the woman I spoke about first, actually, she's about 10 years older than me, and she lived in Anchorage, and we worked together she was the VP of our company, and then went on and actually became our client, which is kind of crazy to go through that transition. But she was absolutely, when I was pregnant with my first kid, I felt like I was having like I don't know, totally just, I was the one always doing the happy hours, and I'm like, now I'm pregnant. What do I do? I don't know, just like talking to her about like going through that transition and seeing a woman who I really respected as a mom and like what she does as a mom. It's like, okay, like, I don't know. I know we're talking business, but I actually feel like that was maybe one of the most important people I had in my life during that time. So,
But going back to a prior episode with Ashley Quintel Powell, it's hard. Yes, you're a mom, but yes, you're a businesswoman, and that you're not two different people. You're still one person trying to figure out how to do both jobs.
yes.
And that's why I think Don's point was really well taken, that you don't get one mentor. You're not limited.
Right.
You can have several, and you can have different ones during different stages of your life and doing different aspects. And sometimes something, when you have a newborn, some things are going to take priority that isn't going to be the same as when they're teenagers, but other things are going to take priority when they're teenagers. Both might involve being up at 2 a.m. worrying about what the heck they're doing.
Yeah, true.
But I think that all ties in with what we were talking about. And especially with families, whether they're your kids or your parents or whatever, they always are a source of we'll call it instability, because right, you can't control them, but they impact you. And so I think being able to have what you're saying, that accountability, someone to help you stay on track, important. Like Don and I have been talking a lot about having someone, and having maybe even a group of people with accountability. And Don talking a little bit about how accountability isn't just a checklist, but kind of that ability to talk things through. So I don't know if you want to.
Yeah. Well, I would say, Amanda and I too kind of really talked about it's like you just need to like voice sometimes your challenges or your feelings of things you want to accomplish, and saying it out loud and having others maybe agree with you or just listening to you kind of gives you that motivation to do it.
Mhm.
And so that's where I've been too, like for Amanda too, it's like you're kind of in this new island almost, where for me it's like, oh my God, I used to be surrounded by a bunch of people and have a team to bounce ideas off of. And so I kind of started this accountability group just because I hear often of things, and maybe it's not always accountability, but it's a space that's comfortable to talk about things that are coming up, or the little things like recently came up of, if someone I keep getting these gift cards to go to a massage, but for some reason I just can't do it. I can't book the appointment. Like things like that where we sometimes forget about ourselves, which is the most important asset. So yeah, I've been kind of doing those things to get us together to just motivate each other, because who knows what it could bring. Or two, I just think of what you just said earlier too, Amanda, of asking her. The one thing that I've realized, and even from the book we read recently, Erin, is sometimes people love to give and we're so hesitant to ask because
Yes.
like, how much is this going to cost me? Or I feel really bad. But you know what? Everybody loves to give.
Yeah.
You could actually be making that woman's week every week, having that conversation with her, because her brain's getting used in a different way again that she never gets to do. And it's like, sometimes we forget or overlook those things and we
Right.
don't do it.
Absolutely. And I would also just add to that, like, it's not always just being held accountable. As a lot of times I think it's just learning from each other, right? Like I think when you stop that was what I felt when I jumped out on my own. I was always surrounded by people that was learning all kinds of things. Like in Alaska, I was learning how to backpack in the mountains and how to stay safe from bears and like random stuff all the time. Just before a meeting would start, you learn these things. And like when you're on your own, I think you have to lean into finding people to learn from, because when you stop doing that, it's like, what am I doing? Right? Like it just feels, I don't know, it feels yucky to me. So
Dawn mentioned she started her own business, and so that means I took it as an excuse to pull her into lots of different things like the hosted bar. And then we also started a quarterly book club. So we were reading Influence is Your Superpower.
Oh, nice.
And so a lot of, I think what we were talking about is the stuff that was covered in that book where you can't change people, you can't influence it, but how do you help them help themselves, and how do them help you? And you can't do that without asking, right? You can't do them without being clear about what your needs are and what their needs are. And I think that also goes into something that you've been talking a lot about throughout this, and kind of knowing your priorities and knowing what it is. And so one of the things I'm wondering is, how many of your big changes helped you learn about priorities, or were they more driven by priorities? Because it seems like there's a lot of give and take here, where some things were like, oh, we wanted to move back, but when you move, you have to decide, I can't take everything.
Yeah.
Right. And or I'm going to move, but I'm going to move to a city I've never been to. So there's a lot of decisions that have to be made about what your priorities. And then as a business owner, I would love to have an unlimited budget and unlimited time, but I can't. So with all of your lessons that you learned have you had any lessons about kind of priorities, or leaning into them, or letting them drag, or does it feel sometimes like they're pulling you in directions that feel weird? Or I don't know, there's a question in there somewhere.
Well, I have an answer too, so we'll see if they match. I honestly, this is like great timing for this question, because maybe the first couple of years of this business, and also just being a single mom for the first time, like there's a lot of I don't know, chaos, right? Like it was all kind of just floating, and like, just don't let any balls hit the ground, like kind of felt like that for a long time. And then I actually think that that's what was happening with me last fall. And maybe it was like COVID's kind of dying down, and like all this life is coming back, and okay, now what's important, right? Like now I look at my life and I have a lot of control, because I don't have a partner to make decisions with. I don't have, I don't have a boss telling me what to do. I have full control of most of my life. So yeah, right. Which is terrifying and awesome, right? But so last fall, when I took this break from drinking, the main thing that I was thinking about at that time is that I need to shift everything in my life. It was like I had this awakening where I'm like, my mental health has to be my number one priority over everything, over my kids, over the business, money, all of it. So I'm a huge like workout person. Like I do something active every single day. I'm like religious about this. But it's interesting that at that time, about 6 months ago, I shifted my thinking of I'm working out to like, I don't know, fit in my jeans and like, I don't know what, because I mean, I'm an athlete. I love activity, whatever, but I shifted it. So it's like, I work out so that I have mental clarity during the day, so that I have sustained energy, so that I sleep at night. So my mental health is better. And when I shifted everything, and I mean, like, I think about food the same way. I mean, I'm a pretty healthy eater, but when I think about it in terms of like, I feel better when I eat these things, I feel better when I work with people that build me up instead of bring me down. I can lean into my kids when I have better rest and like a calmness about me, which I think to me, that's what mental health feels like to me, is like calm. It's not happiness. Like happiness comes and goes in my mind. I think it's like a peace though. And so that I have reprioritized my life to put that at the absolute top. And I think, I mean, that was part of not drinking, right? So because I could tell that it was affecting like my energy levels, which affected my mood, which affects my mental health. So that has become my absolute number one priority in the last 6 months for the first time in my whole life. And that's where it's going to stay. Like nothing's going to get into that. And I've noticed I have treated lots of people in my life differently because of that. Like I set boundaries easier because it's like I protect it now. It's like, no, this is really critically important because I can't be a good mom and I can't run a business if I'm not sane. Like it just is important. And so I've set these boundaries with people, with clients. I'm much better about saying, this is what's going to happen, So yes, that's what I've learned. And, I'm not perfect, but I definitely am working at keeping that at number one.
We have a saying or that you got to put the oxygen mask on yourself first.
Yes.
Right. And that's what you're doing, because if you can't breathe, you can't make sure they're breathing.
Right. Yep. It's true.
Great. I loved the calm and the peace and the boundaries. I think that's the one thing, unfortunately, is we're not always top priority, which is sad, and everybody always comes first, or business comes first, or other things. But I love how you're really focusing on yourself. And I think that's where it was just so intriguing to me to meet you for the first time. And I felt like I knew you for years.
Yeah.
And I think that's where too, I just love always learning from other people and how they're really focusing on themselves and making the world better too, but also being adventurous. And so, yeah, I felt like this was very inspiring for me. I'm excited, Erin, to talk about this conversation and our takeaways, because man, I'm getting a lot of takeaways and I'm writing notes even during this.
Well, I warned you both that 30 minutes goes fast.
Yeah.
And we're there. So Amanda, one more time, you are Amanda and your business is
Fort Marketing, like build a fort.
Awesome. So thank you so much. Thank you for opening up, not just about your business, but kind of all the life things, and the fact that you are exploring the non-alcohol way of going to bars.
Am I the only one in Wisconsin?
No, you are absolutely not. And you're not even the only one in Wisconsin, because a lot of people are like, oh, then you're alcoholic, right? And you're like, no, you can choose not to drink and it be a choice that for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important question that people sometimes ask, and you're like, why does it matter when I'm choosing not to drink? I'm choosing not to drink because I am. That's why.
Yeah. You know what I've been saying a lot is when people are like, why aren't you drinking? I'm like, because I like sleep. Like alcohol makes me not sleep very well. So I'm like, I just really like to sleep. Okay. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not drinking because I'm not drinking. And that's what you need to know.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
Well, thank you so much, Amanda. We really enjoyed it. And I am also excited to talk about it with you in 2 weeks, Dawn. So we'll see then.
Thank you, Amanda. So good to see you.
Yeah. Good to see you guys. Thanks so much.